Chapter 11. The Flood. Darkness in a mountain was different from darkness in space. Space darkness was a clean, empty void. The darkness in the Alpine Bastion was a presence. It was heavy, damp, and thick with the smell of fear, ozone, and the sharp, acrid scent of overheated machinery. The dim red emergency lights carved small pools of vision in a sea of black, making the cavernous spaces feel both claustrophobically small and terrifyingly vast. The moment the geothermal tap blew and the primary lights died, a new sound replaced the deep, thrumming heartbeat of the mountain. Silence, then a rising tide of human panic. Distant shouts echoed through the stone corridors. A child wailed, the sound abruptly cut off. The Bastion, already on the brink, had been plunged into its final crisis. In the engineering bay, lit only by the portable lamps from the Wayfarer and the ghostly glow of a few dying control panels, Rook, Kai, and Ren faced the new reality. "Battery power is at 68% and falling," Ren reported, his face slick with sweat in the lamplight. He'd hooked a diagnostic slate into a secondary port. "Life support is on minimal. The CO2 scrubbers are offline. We have maybe 6 hours before the air in the lower galleries becomes toxic. Less in the confined spaces." "The polymer," Rook said, turning to Kai. "How fast can you install it?" Kai was already unpacking the first bioreactor canister, a heavy, translucent cylinder filled with a dark, viscous gel that shimmered under the light. "If we can get to the scrubber nexus, I can bypass the degraded units and inject this directly into the air cycling system. It'll start working immediately, but it needs power to circulate. Not much, but some. We'll ration battery power to it," Ren said. "Priority 1, breathable air. Priority 2 is Thorne." Hayes's voice crackled over Rook's suit comm. She was still on the Wayfarer, monitoring from orbit. "I'm reading multiple life signs moving through the upper levels toward your position. Heat signatures show they're armed. He's not done." Rook had expected this. Thorne's faith had been challenged, his command usurped. He would see the darkness not as a consequence of his actions, but as the final purifying trial, and he would want to reclaim his garden from the serpents. Ren, how many are still loyal to him? The engineer's face tightened. Hard to say. Maybe 30 of the older guard. The ones who have nothing left but the faith. Everyone else. They saw the children getting sick. They felt the tremors. They'll follow whoever keeps them alive. "Then let's make sure that's us," Rook said. "Hayes, keep an eye on those movement patterns. Ren, lead Kai to the scrubber nexus. I'll secure this area and establish a defensible position. We need to get that polymer online, then get everyone who's willing to the shuttle hangar. We're evacuating." "Evacuating?" Ren looked stunned. "To where?" "To our ship, then off this planet. Your home is killing you, Ren. Thorne was right about one thing. You can't stay here. Not without the technology he hates. And with that technology, you don't need the mountain." The truth of it settled on Ren like a physical weight. He gave a slow, grim nod. "Understood. This way, Kai." As they disappeared into a maintenance conduit with 2 of Ren's people carrying the canisters, Rook turned to the 3 Wayfarer security personnel who had accompanied them. "Barricade that main corridor. Use whatever you can find. We're not here to fight a war, but we will hold this bay. It's our only way out." The next hour was a tense ballet of crisis management. Kai reported success. The polymer was injected, and portable power units from the shuttle were rigged to the circulation pumps. The stale metallic taste in the air began to slowly, subtly change. It wasn't fresh, but the suffocating heaviness lifted. Meanwhile, Hayes's warnings became more urgent. "Thorne's group has reached the primary junction above engineering. They're paused, debating, maybe, or waiting." Rook used the time to organize the evacuation. Ren's people spread through the lower galleries, moving through the frightened crowds with lamps and firm instructions. "To the main hangar. Take only what you can carry. The mountain is failing. We're leaving." Some went willingly, shepherding children, helping the elderly. Others resisted, paralyzed by fear or loyalty to Thorne's ideal. "The commander said to hold fast. This is a test," one woman cried, clutching a child to her chest. "The test is over," a young man beside her, his face gaunt, said quietly. "We failed. Now we live with the consequences." He took her arm and gently pulled her toward the moving line of people. It was working. They were getting people out. Then, the first shot echoed through the stone corridors. It wasn't aimed at them. It was a signal. From the darkness of the upper corridor, Thorne's voice boomed, amplified by a handheld hailer. People of the Bastion, do not listen to the lies. The darkness is our crucible. The strangers have poisoned our air with their machinations. They seek to make you dependent, to erase what makes us human. Stand fast. Reject them. His words sowed instant confusion. The line of evacuees faltered. People looked back into the dark, torn between the promise of life and the powerful, familiar call of their faith. "He's going to get everyone killed," Hayes said over the comm, her voice tight. Rook knew she was right. He keyed his own external speaker. "Thorne, this is Rook. Your scrubbers were dead. We fixed them. Your mountain was going to shake itself apart. We stopped it. We're offering a way out. That's all. Let your people choose." "They cannot choose when their minds are clouded by fear and false comfort," Thorne roared back. "You have brought the sickness of ease into our home. I will purge it." A second shot rang out, this time aimed. It ricocheted off the rock near the barricade, spraying chips of stone. "He's not debating anymore," one of the security team said, ducking. Rook made a decision. "Hayes, can you get a shuttle down through that storm? We need to get these people out now. The persuading is over. The rad storm is still spiking, but I can do a hot drop. One shuttle, maybe 2 trips. It'll be rough." "Do it. We'll hold the door." But Thorne had a different plan. His voice came again, colder, final. "You wish to save them with technology. Then let us see if your technology can save them from the mountain itself." A deep, grinding groan echoed through the Bastion, deeper and more profound than the tremor from the blown valve. This wasn't the sound of releasing pressure. It was the sound of structure failing. "What did he do?" Kai's voice screamed over the comm from the scrubber nexus. Ren, who had just returned, stared at a secondary seismic readout on a handheld device. His face went white. "The manual override for the primary geothermal containment. It's in the command center. He's bypassing the safeties. He's forcing a full, uncontrolled vent inside the mountain." The schematic flashed in Rook's mind. The geothermal tap didn't just vent outside. It had internal pressure relief lines meant for maintenance, massive ducts that ran through the lower levels of the Bastion, shielded and insulated. If those lines were opened while the core was still hot. "He's going to flood the lower galleries with superheated steam," Rook said, horror dawning. "The children," Ren whispered. The groan became a roar. The temperature in the engineering bay spiked 10 degrees in as many seconds. A hot, wet wind began to blow from the deeper tunnels, the breath of the dying mountain. Panic became pandemonium. The orderly evacuation line shattered as people screamed and ran, some toward the hangar, others blindly into the dark. The red emergency lights flickered wildly as power systems surged and failed. "Kai, get back here now," Rook yelled into the comm. "On my way. The scrubber nexus is flooding. The heat is melting the seals. All teams fall back to the hangar. That's the only safe vector left. Hayes, where's that shuttle? Entering atmosphere now, 2 minutes. The hangar doors are still open, but the wind shear is insane." Rook grabbed Ren. "We need to get everyone to the hangar, now. It's the highest point. The steam will fill the low areas first." They became shepherds in a hellscape, pushing against a tide of terrified humanity. The hot wind became a gale, carrying with it the first tendrils of scalding mist. People screamed as it touched their skin. Rook saw a man fall, his clothes smoking. He and a security officer dragged him up and forward. They reached a junction. To the left, the corridor sloped upward toward the hangar. To the right, it plunged down into the residential galleries. A young woman stood frozen in the intersection, screaming for her child. "He's down there. He ran back." He ran. Ren made to go down. Rook grabbed his arm. "The steam will be there already. It's a death trap." "He's 8 years old," the woman sobbed. Rook looked at the security officer, at Ren, at the woman's desperate face. He thought of Leo Vance, smiling emptily as the air tore from his lungs. He thought of the choice that was never a choice. "Give me your lamp," he said to the security officer. To Ren, "Get her to the hangar. Get everyone up. Don't stop." Captain, you can't. That's an order. Rook took the lamp and plunged down the right-hand corridor into the deepening heat and the roaring dark. The lower gallery was a vision from a furnace. Steam hissed from cracks in the walls and floor. The red lights here were mostly dead. His lamp beam cut through the swirling, hot fog, revealing overturned furniture, abandoned belongings, and terrible wet shadows on the walls. The air was a brutal mix of scorching heat and choking humidity. His suit's environmental controls whined in protest. "Hello," he shouted, his voice muffled by the roar. "Is anyone here?" A whimper, almost lost in the noise. He followed it around a collapsed partition into a small family quarters unit. A boy was huddled under a metal table, his arms over his head, shaking. Rook crawled to him. The boy looked up, his face streaked with tears and soot. "It's hot," he whispered. "I know. We have to go. Now." Rook wrapped the boy in a heat blanket from his kit, picked him up, and turned to leave. As he did, his lamp beam swept the wall. There, etched into the rock by a previous occupant, was a single word: purity. The irony was a physical blow. This child had nearly died for that word. The journey back was a race against a rising tide. The steam was thicker, hotter. His suit's external temperature alarm began a low, persistent whine. He held the boy close, using his own body as a shield against the worst of the heat radiating from the walls. He could feel the child's rapid heartbeat through the layers of fabric and armor. The junction seemed miles away. The roar was deafening. His breath came in ragged gasps, the suit's filters struggling. Just as he reached the upward slope, a section of ceiling ahead gave way with a thunderous crack, disgorging a torrent of boiling water and rubble that completely blocked the corridor back to the hangar. He was cut off. "Rook, report!" Hayes' voice in his ear. "Corridor collapsed. I'm cut off from the hangar. Alternative route?" A beat of static-filled silence. Wren's voice came through, strained. "There's an old emergency ladder, a service shaft for the air processors. It goes from the lower utility gallery straight up to the hangar sublevel. But the utility gallery is where the main steam ducts are. It'll be the hottest point. Mark it on my schematics." A path glowed on his wrist display. It was a nightmare route, back down, through the heart of the steam, then straight up a narrow, vertical shaft. He had no choice. He adjusted his grip on the boy. "Hold on tight. Don't let go." He moved back into the inferno. The utility gallery was a long, low tunnel lined with pipes. Now it was a river of fog so thick his lamp beam only penetrated a meter. The heat was beyond anything he'd experienced. His suit alarms were a constant choir. The outer layers were beginning to soften. He ran, stumbling over debris, following the schematic path through the white, roaring hell. He found the service shaft. A hatch in the floor, its manual release wheel glowing cherry red. He had to use a tool to turn it, his gloves sizzling at the touch. The hatch fell open, revealing a rung ladder descending into even more intense heat and steam. No, this was wrong. He checked the schematic. The shaft went up. He looked again. The hatch was in the floor, but the ladder went up. The utility gallery was on a sub-level. In his disorientation, he'd gotten turned around. The shaft was his way up. He slung the boy onto his back, using a strap to secure him. "Wrap your arms around my neck. Close your eyes." Then he began to climb, one burning rung at a time. The shaft was a chimney of hell. Superheated air rushed up it, carrying abrasive particles of rock and ash. His visor was instantly fogged and pitted. He climbed blind, by feel, each rung searing through his gloves. The boy coughed violently against his back. His own lungs burned. The suit's cooling system was failing. He could smell the sharp scent of overheating electronics. He lost count of the rungs. The world narrowed to pain, heat, and the desperate need to move upward. Just as his arms began to shake with exhaustion, his head slammed into a solid surface above him. The top hatch. He fumbled for the release. It was cooler here. It turned. The hatch opened into a blessedly cool, dark space, a sub-level of the hangar, filled with storage crates. He hauled himself and the boy out, collapsing onto the cold rock floor, gasping. The boy was limp. Rook quickly checked him. Alive, unconscious, suffering from heat exposure. But alive. "Rook, I've got your signal. You're in sub-level storage. There's a ramp to your left, leads to the main hangar floor. The shuttle is down, but we can't hold much longer. The storm is tearing the place apart. He gathered the boy again and ran up the ramp. The hangar was chaos. The first shuttle, piloted by one of Hayes's best, sat in the center, its engines screaming to hold position against the howling wind blasting through the open doors. People were being shoved aboard in a frantic, disorderly stream. Kai and Ren were at the edge, directing traffic. Through the open doors, Rook could see the storm, a solid wall of greenish-black cloud lit from within by continuous lightning. He passed the boy to a medic from the Wayfarer who had come down on the shuttle, then fought his way to Kai. "How many?" 70 aboard. Shuttle's at capacity. They need to go, now." "Where's Thorne?" As if in answer, a shot rang out from the upper gantry that circled the hangar. It struck the rock near the shuttle's landing strut. Thorne stood there, alone, silhouetted against the storm-lit doorway behind him. He held his rifle, but he wasn't aiming at people. He was aiming at the shuttle. "No one leaves." His voice was raw, broken, but amplified by the hailer still in his other hand. "This is where we stand. This is where we prove we are human." "He'll shoot the fuel line," the shuttle pilot's voice yelled over the comm. "I have to lift off." "If you lift off, the rest die here," Rook yelled back. He looked at Thorne, a single, tragic figure willing to murder his own people for an idea that had already failed. There was no reasoning left. Only force. He didn't have a clean shot. The angle was bad, the wind was horrific, and Thorne was partially shielded by a gantry support. Kai followed his gaze. She understood. Without a word, she raised the tool in her hand. Not a weapon, but the portable harmonic calibrator they'd built for the geothermal injectors. It was a heavy, blunt object. "It's tuned to resonate with certain crystalline structures in rock," she shouted over the wind. "If I hit the right frequency at that power output." She adjusted a dial, aiming the emitter dish not at Thorne, but at the rock face of the ceiling directly above him. She activated it. A deep, subsonic thrum vibrated through the hangar, felt in the teeth more than heard. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a network of hairline cracks appeared in the ceiling rock above the gantry. A shower of dust and pebbles fell. Thorne looked up, confused. With a sound like a mountain sighing, a whole section of the ceiling, a slab of rock 3 meters across, sheared free and crashed down onto the gantry. It didn't hit Thorne directly. It hit the gantry walkway in front of and behind him, shearing the supports. The section he was standing on twisted, groaned, and collapsed, plummeting 10 meters to the hangar floor in a crash of rending metal and shattering stone. The rifle clattered away into the darkness. Thorne lay still in the rubble. There was no time to see if he was alive. "Go! Now!" Rook screamed at the shuttle pilot. The shuttle's engines rose to a shriek. It lifted, wobbled violently in the crosswind, and shot out into the storm, vanishing into the boiling clouds. The hangar was suddenly much emptier, much quieter, save for the howl of the wind and the moans of the injured. About 30 people remained, including Rook's team and Ren. "The Wayfarer can't send the shuttle back in time," Hayes reported, her voice grim. "The storm is peaking. They'd be torn apart." Rook looked at the remaining survivors, their faces etched with terror and exhaustion. They stood in the dim light, the storm raging at the open door, their mountain dying around them. "Then we hold," he said, his voice cutting through the wind. "We seal what we can, we wait it out, and when the storm breaks, we get the hell off this planet." They had saved many. They had broken the faith of a prophet, and they were still trapped in the graveyard, with the ghosts of a dead world closing in.